Hey everyone, this is Ankur, and we are here in the barn of an organic farm called Pariah Dog Farm. It's located in Teaticket, Massachusetts, and I'm volunteering here just to see how organic food is grown and help out with food production. So I'm here with Matthew Churchill, who is the organic farmer here, and we're going to have a nice conversation on organic food and why you should eat it. So, Matthew, so how did this start? And tell us a little bit about how you began organic farming and what inspired you.
Well, I went to school for horticulture. I started a landscape company about 5 years before I bought this property, and I guess my two passions have always been plants and machinery, and this is kind of a lifestyle that allows me to pursue both of those passions.
So why organic though? Why didn't you go the conventional route?
To be frank, I'm not really a snob when it comes to organic. The market just demands it of growers nowadays. If I was a conventional grower, I don't think I'd be as successful. Conventional growing, when done responsibly, it can be not very destructive, and it's certainly a lot easier and financially viable than organic growing. But like I said, I don't think I'd be able to sell as much of my stuff if I was conventional. That and my own philosophies do dictate that I go organic.
Right. So, being a college student, I'm aware that we have financial difficulties, and organic food is often more expensive than conventional food, and especially in supermarkets. So, as from what you know about health benefits of eating organic and also the environmental benefits, what advice would you give to people who are willing to buy, but it's a little more expensive?
Grow your own.
Grow your own.
Or volunteer in an organic farm. Growing vegetables organically is always going to be more expensive than conventionally. You're always going to pay a tax on eating organic. I would suggest either learn how to produce your own food or find someone like me and connect with them, because organic farms always need labor. And like you came here today, and you'll hopefully leave with some healthy organic produce, so you don't make them pay for it.
Absolutely.
But I don't see the price of locally grown organic food ever going
down. So my advice as a student and someone with a little more free time now, especially with summer vacation, it would be just try to connect with food. And as Matt said, like volunteering on farms is a good way to connect with what you eat. And the most fascinating thing is whatever food we pick today, we're gonna take home with us just immediately after picking, and then we're gonna eat it sometime this week. So it's a great way to know where food comes from. It's a great way to connect with the landscape the food is grown in, and also you know that it's not being grown in a way that's damaging to the ecology surrounding it. It's more or less in harmony. Of course, there are drawbacks, but
I would argue that all agriculture is in opposition to ecology.
Yeah.
When I walk back there, I see the land that I left unclear, and the diversity and beauty of that land is far greater than the land that I'm actually cultivating.
Absolutely.
But again, we have to be financially viable, and we couldn't just be picking autumn olive berries and wild carrots. But I would just say that I acknowledge that what I do is destructive to the environment, and all agriculture is destructive to the environment.
I guess it comes down to like what is the least destructive manner of doing agriculture, especially now that demand is high, population is rising, and what are your thoughts on future of organic food and conventional food? Like, do you see the future leaning more towards these kind of local small farms, or do you see a balance between both?
Yeah, I think organic agriculture is kind of experiencing a renaissance. That said, I think we're also a novelty. We're not really needed. I mean, food can be produced elsewhere, but less expensively. So we're more of a way of calming people's conscience than actually producing food for the community. But that said, I really think that this type of agriculture is needed. We're trying to retain the skills that could be used to feed the community. So if the situation ever arose that this skill set would be needed, it's still here.
Yeah, that's a good point, really good point. And along with that, I would like to ask that nowadays we go into supermarkets like Walmart or Target, and then we buy food, but we don't necessarily know where it comes from. It's written California or Wyoming or somewhere which is far from where you are. And how does that impact with food waste versus if you buy it from a local organic farm where you know the farmer and you have a relationship?
Yeah, with the exception of the plastic that a lot of the stuff we buy at a grow is packaged in, we don't really produce a lot of waste.
Yeah.
I mean, we all of our waste products that we do produce on the farm are recycled, or composted, or fed to chickens, or whatever. So we're not, with the exception of the packaging and stuff that we use, we're not very wasteful. So in that way, I would say that small agriculture is probably less damaging.
Right.
But that said, there's a lot of packaging. You can't see it on the thing, but there's a whole pile of bagged fertilizer over there.
Right.
But yeah, I would say local ag is less damaging.
Local ag is definitely, in my
and it doesn't travel. We drive the truck 2 miles to the farmer's market, and then we sell the stuff, and then it probably goes back into the community. So there's no transportation costs associated with it.
So fossil fuels from transportation is significantly less. Packaging is significantly less. There is less food waste. Would that be good?
Less waste associated with production.
Production waste is less. And I wanted to talk about what about insecticides and pesticides. So what's the main difference besides the chemistry of the pesticides between organic and conventional?
So I'm not a chemist.
Okay.
And you correct me here if you did. But all of the chemicals that we use, I wouldn't really even call them chemicals.
Yeah.
All of the pesticides are botanically derived or bacterial in nature. I don't know what bacillus is, but there are different types of bacillus that kill different things. There's a bacillus that attacks fungi, there's a bacillus that attacks a certain type of beetle, and there's a bacillus that kills lepidopterous insects. And so we use those a lot. We also use botanically derived insecticides such as pyrethrin. That's not permethrin. Permethrin is synthetic pyrethrin. Pyrethrin is derived from chrysanthemums, and it's an incredibly good insecticide. It's just not very long-lived. We also use soaps, which are more of an irritant than an insecticide. We use crop protectants like kalonic clay, I might have pronounced that wrong, which again are irritants. We use other stuff which are chemicals, which are minerally derived, like potassium bicarbonate for fungicides. The main difference between organic pesticides and conventional pesticides is their effectiveness. Organic pesticides are much less effective than conventional pesticides, which means that we're applying them more often and we're applying larger quantities of them. That's one of the reasons why organic production is more expensive.
Great. That's a good point. Like using more of that would increase the cost of production.
But still, I could use 10 times as much DDT or 10 times more pyrethrin than DDT. It's still way less toxic to the environment.
Absolutely.
And it's not as long lived. So you spray that stuff, and it's gone into the environment within the course of 12 hours. Whereas if you spray the conventional stuff, it's going to be there for years, or sometimes it never goes away.
Right.
But again, that's one of, as a farmer, that's one of the benefits of the conventional stuff is its longevity.
But then with that longevity of a conventional farming situation, longevity of pesticides also has a cost on the microbiology of the soil, like killing the life and reducing fertility. So do you think like conventional farming leads to increased use of pesticides because then the microbiology of the soil is lost, which reduces the crop health, and then you apply more pesticides to prevent pest attacks?
I think it's all about scale.
Scale.
Yeah. For instance, there's a 30-acre farm a couple miles from here that's been in production conventionally for 90 years.
90 years.
And I'm good friends with that farmer. And his soil is reasonably healthy. And it's just about having good stewardship and understanding of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Your farmer is your best conservationist.
Absolutely.
You don't want to destroy the soil. So even if they are using harmful pesticides, if they use them responsibly, you can get away with it for a long time if you have good practices like rotation.
Yeah, absolutely. Like previously you said agriculture societies have been destructive, and this is actually featured in a really good book by Daniel Quinn called Ishmael. If you want to read it, highly recommend it. So can you talk a bit more about agriculture versus hunter-gatherers and how our modern civilization has developed dependent on agriculture versus indigenous people?
I don't know if I'm the right person to ask about that, but I will say that Jared Diamond also wrote a really good book, Collapse, which goes into that.
Cool.
But I will say, as a farmer, you see the destruction you do. I mean, every time you till the field, you see its diversity reduced, and you're constantly fighting with nature, and it's a battle that you're supposed to lose. I mean, it's a win for agriculture in a lot of ways is a loss for biodiversity. We lost something when we moved into agrarian society, and the margins of the field that are allowed to remain fallow and wild, they're far more beautiful and sustainable than anything I could do whatever. There's efforts to mimic that though. The Land Institute, previously run by Wes Jackson, they've been working on creating a perennial polyculture.
Okay.
It's permaculture.
Permaculture, right? Absolutely.
Where it's a system that mimics the prairie, so it would only be applicable in a certain environment. But they're trying to breed perennial grain crops and grow them in polyculture, growing a bunch of different crops all at the same time, and then harvesting them with the combine at different heights to accommodate the different plants at different times of year, and then just allowing it to remain as it is with very minimal inputs of both fertilizer and irrigation. It's really cool. You should read Wes Jackson's stuff. It's really, really impressive.
Wow. The Land Institute. And the final question I have is, if someone's looking to do organic farming, what advice would you have for them from the mistakes you've made or just experiences you've had?
Yeah, this is what I like to answer.
Yeah.
Organic farming will never be financially viable by its own. It needs to be subsidized by something else. I run a landscape company as well as this farm. This farm will never pay the mortgage. If you want to be a farmer, you must first start with something else. You have to have a second job, or a wealthy parent or something, another source of income. You will never be able to farm and pay a mortgage. It just won't happen. At least that's been my experience. And I'm in a very, very good environment economically to farm. So start by starting a landscape company, being a waitress, whatever. But just don't expect to pay your bills with farming alone.
Wow. Thank you so much for chatting, Matt. It was a pleasure.
There's one last thing.
Please tell me.
It's like kind of a rhyme or maybe a spoken word poem or something.
Okay.
I want to do it. I've never done it before.
Do it. Yes.
At the core of this thing, at the heart of this beast, is the green revolution's oil-soaked feast. It's big and expanding, but that growth makes it frail. The economics in nature will hold its last nail. You few in the dirt, desperate and weak. After its fall, your reward you may reap. So stand tall, be proud, in that field on your knees. You, friends, are the cure for this widespread disease.
Wow. That was awesome. I
Thank
love
you.
it. Love it.